who is Cara? Like, I want you to introduce yourself in like a few words.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. By the way, it's pronounced Cara. I'm going to start with that.
Oh my God,
Totally
why did you
okay.
not correct me this whole time?
No, that's okay. It's so frequently pronounced as Cara, and I don't know if that's because there's a very famous Cara Delevingne, but she's British, so I always say you get a pass if you have an accent.
I don't have an accent. Oh my God, that's so embarrassing. Okay, so
No, that's okay.
Cara.
Um, I mean, when there's so much correspondence over email and text too, it's like, I
No,
haven't
you're
say
correcting
my name
me.
that often, but yes, it is Cara.
Hi.
Um, Hi, reintroducing myself. Yeah, I mean, it is very hard to talk about myself and not um kind of center it around TV because it's such a big part of my personality and kind of always has been.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I grew up just steeped in art. Like my dad's a musician, my brother's a musician, my mom was an actress and a writer, and there was just like, the way that people identify with a cultural background, I kind of felt like being from a family of artists like was my cultural touchstone.
That's so cool.
So yeah, it was just like um, you know, uh it was a shorthand between all of us, and it was always like, us sharing things with each other. Like I didn't really have that dissonance that some of my friends had with their parents of like having different tastes or not understanding one another. It's like we would show each other movies and TV shows and, you know, books and music and stuff. But yeah, I just got really, really deeply into film and TV and comedy, especially.
Okay.
Um, and I was, yeah, I mean, I've always been a nerd and, a diligent student. So I kind of approach whatever I'm doing with that,
Relatable.
kind of,
Okay.
yeah, dedication. Um, yeah, but I mean, I don't know how broad you want me to go
No,
talking
I
about
think
myself.
good. I mean, like, I also wanted to ask you a little bit more about you come from a family of writers and artists, which I actually wasn't aware of. And I'm curious, like, what your first childhood memory around money was. And I think, especially growing up in a house of art, I would very much assume, and I would love for you to correct me if I'm wrong, that definitely influences your relationship with money at a young age, or maybe it wasn't talked about at all. Like, I would love to hear about how that kind of came into the picture.
Interesting. First memory, because one thing that I really appreciated and still do appreciate about my parents is like they, as you hope happens throughout the generations, it's like they learned and corrected some of the mistakes that their parents made.
Yeah.
And they were pretty open with us about a lot of things. Like they they didn't really yeah, they obviously there's a hierarchy in a family, but like they didn't talk down to us as kids.
No,
They were, yeah, they were pretty open about you know emotional matters, but also financial matters, I think. And um it was it was very apparent to I have an older brother. It was very apparent to my brother and I that we were a single income household because my dad worked, my mom stopped working when we were born.
Hmm.
Um, but at the same time, it's like, it was 90s, early 2000s. Like my mom is like a very, progressive, independent woman. And she never really expected to be in that position. We didn't really think of it as like, oh, we have this nuclear family and this like
Yeah.
1950s dynamic of like where dad goes to work and mom stays home with the kids.
Yeah,
But
it's a single income household, but it's not like a breadwinner, like patriarchal household.
so, but with that, it's like I was very aware that like other friends of mine, both of their parents worked, and then and that it was different for us. But I would say I wasn't as aware of money, I think, until I moved to, so I lived in Toronto for the first 6 years of my life, and then I moved to a country town, a rural town outside of Toronto. And so I think that immediately, like the difference in my surroundings, I was kind of like, oh, how is this different from Toronto, from city life? And yeah, I think around that time is kind of when I started noticing like differences between families, because in the city it's like a little harder to recognize, but in the country it's like you can very much tell by like the size of people's houses.
That's such a valid point. Yeah, because when you're in a city, like most people are just living in apartments. Obviously, like maybe New York is like a bad example because you can kind of feel the wealth disparity from different neighborhoods. But I would imagine, like, even when I lived in Philadelphia, like it wasn't actually very apparent how much people made per se.
No. And when you're a kid, you don't know that a brownstone in New York like costs so much money. You're just like, well, this is kind of like a smallish apartment, but it's like, no.
No. It's insane.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. I kind of grew up in a similar situation of like in a single income household, but I also was very aware of personal finance. But in some ways, I actually view that maybe as like a really good thing because the transparency was something that allowed me to actually think about money. I think especially for women who are kind of left out of that conversation, I feel like it's important to be talking about money and like I'm one of two girls, and like having a like women household, it's like so important because you actually have like a father who's like a girl dad and like telling his girls that it's really important to have autonomy, not even just money, but it's like autonomy and agency, you know?
Absolutely. And those two things definitely have to go hand in hand because yeah, it's true. And my dad was definitely very he always has been he has always helped my brother and I be more aware of our finances and tried to educate us. And mostly it comes from like, these are things that I didn't do as a young person and wish that I did. So I want you to be aware of it. But yeah, I think it's also through kind of an entrepreneurial lens because, being an artist, like it's not really like you have, an employer taking care of a lot of things in an accounting department. But
you are your own accountant.
Yeah, exactly. But what was there was something else I was going to say about, no, I forget. Right.
Well, it's kind of a related question to the childhood memory, but like I kind of wanted to walk through your path of even being a writer and how you came to really enjoy it. It sounds like you really grew up in like an artistic household, but then I also saw that you were doing some writing in high school as well, or like college. Is that right? I was like doing a little bit of research on like what your path kind of looked like, and I saw that you were also like a director's assistant on the Apple TV C, and then also the associate producer on Slip. And I was just curious, like, what kind of made you get to this point of being a staff writer on Your Friends and Neighbors? Like, walk me through that path.
Yeah. So in high school, so I moved 2 years into high school. I was still living in the country, and then I moved halfway through high school back to Toronto, back to the city. And that was a very difficult time. Moving as a 16-year-old girl is challenging. And so it was like, I always knew that I wanted to work in film and TV and entertainment in some capacity, but there was a long stretch in my formative years where I just didn't know, as many of us don't know exactly what we want to do. Yeah. But I applied to a really good program in Toronto for media production, partly because it's one of the most recognized media production programs in Canada, but also because it was right downtown and I didn't want to move again. And I was able to stay at home while I was going there. And so I was just like, yeah, this feels like the path of least resistance. Yeah. But I was actually talking about this last night. Like, I hated writing as a kid. I truly despised it. Truly despised it. Okay. I was more of a visual art person.
Okay, yeah.
And performance, I did some theater, but I really hated writing. And I don't know if that's just because of the way it's taught in schools and like there's so many rules and it feels a bit, constricting, but I hated it. But I wrote a poem for Remembrance Day. Do you call it Memorial Day here?
Yeah.
Okay, it's called Remembrance Day in Canada, but I wrote a poem and it like won an award. And that was the first time when I was kind of like, weird, okay.
Be like really good at this.
Well, no, I was like, it's a fluke. And my mom was like, no, it's not. My mom was always, I don't want to say pushing me, but like encouraging me to even entertain interest in writing.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
She's always like, she's a perceptive person. And I feel like she could see it in me before I did. But anyway, I started writing, honestly. I started journaling first, like just as kind of an emo teenager, being like, oh, so many feelings. I don't know what to do. Yeah, right. And I was like, I voraciously read memoirs as a teenager too.
I'll do it. That'll do it.
Right. And so I was like, wow, these people are just like talking about their lives and saying it in a really interesting, like voice-driven manner.
Yeah.
And it was more freeform. It was just like things they found interesting or weird or frustrating. So anyway, in college, there was a class where we had to write a blog. It was like a visual media class, but we had to keep a blog every week.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what did it. I started writing this blog for class and I was like, this is kind of fun.
Oh, wait, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, what was the blog about? Like, was it an interesting topic or like what really got you into it?
It's actually why it was like, it was for this visual media class. And so one of the first ones I remember was like, we learned about typography, like fonts. And I loved that because like I love art and I kind of nerd out on like the craft and like different ways of creating. And so we learned a lot about different typefaces. And so
we had to do like calligraphy.
Yeah. Honestly. And that was actually, I had been doing some of my own calligraphy and drawing.
Oh my God. Okay.
So that was just like, it was just cool to be given free rein to like talk about why you liked this or what you gravitated towards. And anyway, that class was a lot of like, we had to animate a title sequence for like one of our favorite movies. And mine was Little Miss Sunshine. So I did a little animation of like the white Volkswagen or the yellow Volkswagen bus, like going across the screen and then like the Little Miss Sunshine title coming in. So it was that, and then the blog kept going in this kind of like artistic way throughout the class of reflecting on the different things that we were learning. And then I think I started marrying it with the memoirs and like comedian autobiographies that I had been reading. And I was like, oh, I can kind of like talk about things in a funny way and like find my quirky sense of humor.
Yeah, you didn't have like you're not boxed into something. Like I honestly remember having a similar experience growing up where I hated writing. I still remember one of my standardized tests, they were like, you need to write like a fiction piece around being in a butterfly room. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, why am I going to write about being in a butterfly room? Like, that's so, honestly, now I look at it and I think it's actually more fun to write about than like when I was in second grade. But like, I remember leaving college and being like, I'm going to write about my feelings because it's like post-grad and you're like an emo 20-year-old person. And you're like, oh, I really enjoy this act of writing without constraints. And I love writing just about things that I care about and things that I like. And honestly, things I just want to learn about. It's like the best way to learn is by writing and teaching and reading and doing all these things that I think growing up, you're like, why would I want to do those things? So I really resonate with this idea of not having kind of learning these new things that we're taught in school that are kind of not put into these boxes of what it's supposed to be. Because I think honestly, everyone is a writer and everyone is a reader. Everyone is an artist in their own way, you know?
That's really interesting. And I do agree with that too. It's like, I think that creativity is something everyone has access to. It's just like, you have to just establish your own relationship to it. But you're so right. And like, it took me a long time to realize too, that I am very ADHD, that I have ADHD, but I didn't know what was going, and you know, we call it ADHD. We may go on to learn that it's like a multitude of other things as well. But interest is such a big piece of it, right? Of like, it's like, you can't focus unless you're interested in something, and then it's all you can focus on. And I do think when you were like, why would I write about this butterfly room? I really think giving young people, especially young minds, like more freedom to like identify what interests them and then write about it, instead of it being so prescriptive, because then you just feel like, it just feels like a drag. And then you feel like you can't do it, but it's not because you can't do it. You just like haven't made your way into it yet.
Yeah. And so many children, I think they like grow up to think that or like as an adult, they're like, I don't think I'm capable of doing this. When in reality, it's just like the constraints you were put under when you were younger. And it takes so much willpower to be like, I am actually someone that can write. I am someone that can learn. It's like so much unlearning kind of thing. It's kind of what you're saying. It's like we call it ADHD or we call it unfocused, but it's like, I think a human also, if they're not interested in something, why would they go out of their way to really go and learn that? Especially when you're young, you have this like wild running imagination, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly. And it's sometimes like, it's not even that you have to change the topic or the subject. It's just like, you have to find what's interesting about it to you.
Yeah.
And especially with the like, the what was it? The like 5-paragraph structure where it was like,
oh my God,
supporting arguments, and like the introduction had to be a certain way. I would like, my skin crawls thinking about it.
Literally same. And like each paragraph, you need to have the introductory sentence and concluding sentence, and you have to say in conclusion. I'm like, no, that's not how writing works. That's not how thoughts work, you know? Okay, I do empathize with that a lot. Yay. Okay. Well, I also want to make sure we get to time, like to actually talk about the show itself, because I think it's really interesting the way that it went. And there was so many discussions around money. Obviously, there's the forefront of money throughout the entire show, but also the underlying themes about it that I want to discuss with you as being a writer in the writer's room. So I guess like we can get started with, this is something we had talked about even when I had the first call with you, which is this idea that what I think makes this specific show so unique from other shows about wealthy people is that they either make you want the life or you want to watch them suffer. So it's kind of like eating the rich type of culture in these television shows. And I really felt like this show didn't do either of those. And I was curious, like, was that deliberate in the writing room?
Yeah, that's such an interesting point because I mean, obviously I said in our first conversation, which wasn't documented, but Jonathan Tropper really, like, he approaches everything as a novelist with such a full scope of like the world and the tone that he's going for. And so, you know, not a lot of it was random. Like he came in with quite an intention about like how he was speaking about wealth, you know, from his own experience, and then of course taking it further into this, you know,
Yeah.
fictional version of it. But we were very mindful not to satirize it in a way that maybe, you know, the White Lotus would have done.
That feels like more of like a fetishization. I don't even know how to say the word fetishization. Yeah.
Yes, and mockery
Yes.
of
Yeah.
of these people. And part of what I love, I mean, that's partly why I loved working on the show so much, is that it was humanizing everyone in a way. Like some people obviously would come off in kind of a poor light because of behavior or whatever, but like underneath it all, it was like looking at the reality of their humanity and why they were making the choices they were making, and also the pressures that drove them to make the choices they were making. You know, not that that's an excuse, but it's like it's the source of, you know, a lot of the things that we judge, you know, in society, and especially in wealthy society. But it was a really tricky, like, you know, line to walk.
Definitely.
Because we still wanted it to be funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's more nuanced than just eat the rich, or, you know.
Well, that's why I think the show pulled it off so well, is because I think honestly Coop is such a good representation of this, because you see that he is a character who came from a middle class family. Like literally his parents are the definition of like the very kind parents who are like, yeah, my dad goes to the bowling alley like every Sunday, to like, it's just a very like average American experience. Then he goes to Princeton. Then he works at an investment bank. Then he works his way up. And somehow now he's working as like a partner at this huge investing firm. But the thing is, you start with that story, but you see his entire journey getting up to that point. And still at the same time, you see his relationships with Allie, you see his relationships with his wife, and like people who have access or had access to his older version of himself, in which you're like, wait, but I can't actually feel like I'm eating the rich, because even in the present, you have the heart of just a normal human being.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, you're right. And it's like there is so much unfolding that you see throughout the 2 seasons. But what's so cool about the pilot is that like you get his life story in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
This is what happens. And then you kind of fill in the blanks, you know, in your own mind, but then get more of that as it trickles out. But yeah, there was a lot of attention drawn to his upbringing, because of the parents are characters in the show, the sister is still a character, but then his new family that he has made, and by extension his new community. But it's like, yeah, he's still in between those two worlds.
Yeah, but what's so interesting is like, I feel like even in my own life, I've seen people go from like the middle class journey to becoming upper middle class, or bless you.
Thank you.
And I do think that a lot of people do change on that journey. But something that was like, I felt notable about him was even when he gets kicked out to this new apartment and he's like housing his sister, you still see like the Coop that's just like this like normal ass person, you know?
Right.
And he's just like one of the most, even his inner dialogues, I think I told you this last time, one of the best parts of the show is that he is just so painfully aware of how fake Westmont Village is. Like the narration on the scotch, he's like, scotch is a fucking religion here. Like one of my favorite scenes, because it's like he just is so self-aware, and yet he still chooses to be in the room. He sees everything with this clarity, but he still like chooses to not leave. And I'm just curious, like, how did you come up with that? How did the writers in the room come up with that?
Well, again, like so much of that is the mind of Jonathan Tropper. And so like I learned so much, you know, from writers who are able to glean so much clarity about their own life from hindsight and retrospect, right? Because he's probably been in that situation where he's like wondering what's the point of this scotch? Like, why are we making such a big deal out of it? But it's also like cool to be gifted a really expensive bottle of scotch.
Yeah, it's just like human nature, right?
It's like it's human nature, but yeah, I feel like Jonathan had said that like there was a lot of discussion about the inner dialogue, the inner monologue, because it is so important to the show. It's like such it's a stylistic choice because it's not driving the plot, but there was a lot of discussion around what is this voice? Like, is this Coop in the future? Is this Coop in the moment thinking about what's going on? Or is he like a little farther removed from this? And I think we did arrive at the understanding that it is him a bit later on with like clarity around what was happening to him.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
In that, but again, it's like it is that dissonance, and like maybe you're never gonna kind of reach an understanding of deciding that one opinion is better than the other. You know what I mean? Like maybe you're always going to have that duality of like, I think this is dumb, but also I want this scotch.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think he is literally the epitome of that like dichotomy in the show, right? Whereas like other characters, like, I don't know, like all the other like miscellaneous characters of Westmont Village are very on the other side of the spectrum, where it's like that is a life that it seems that they choose to live and they want that, versus Coop is like in this middle ground of, do I actually seek out this life? What would a life that does not include riches, like even when he has that conversation with Mel, I think in like the end of season 2, if we lost it all, what would actually be the repercussions of that? And I think that him even going towards that line of thinking is like almost like reaching that like midlife crisis of like, was it all worth it? Yeah.
Was it all worth it? And I honestly, I find that's what I find so kind of painful about the character is it is maybe idealistic to think, oh, what if we gave it all up? Because you could, but it might be a harder life just because of the way we've made things as like our civilization. You know what I mean? That it's just like, it is easier to have more money. Like it just does make life easier.
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, the show is proving that like,
yeah,
you can't rely on anything really to stay in your
like money like buys happiness in terms of being able to afford life. Like it protects your peace to have financial stability. But at the same time, anything can go away at any moment, as is demonstrated in the show so clearly. But you're like, if you have a stable enough ground inside, it's like, does that even matter to begin with?
Yeah.
Well, you can always rebuild that, you know?
Was there ever a point in the show when you like wanted Coop to do something or didn't want him to do something?
It was so funny when we were watching the season finale. By the way, when me and my friends watched the first episode, we literally binged it. We looked at each other and we're like, next one. And we rolled it, like binge watched it. It
Oh
was
my God, that's
my friends
amazing.
and I like were extreme fans. That's why I'm like, this is amazing to get to talk to a writer in the room. But I think when I don't know, when he accepted that deal with Ash in season two, I was like, it almost reminded me of The Banality of Evil. I don't know if you've heard of that by Hannah Arendt. It's basically this
I've heard
like,
of it, yeah.
yeah, it's like I feel like you keep rooting for Coop to be like, no, like maybe this is the last straw. Okay, no, maybe this is the last straw. And like you see him get involved with like a $400 million deal. And you're like, Coop, like you actually don't need to go down this route. But then you see how easy it is for bad actions to compound on top of one another. And you realize how financial crime and just getting engrossed in the hedonic treadmill is
Yeah.
actually extremely banal, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's very interesting that it's like, do you mean that in the sense that like you empathize with why he's doing it because you see how easy it is to kind of fall into that spiral?
I empathize. I mean, there were so many reasons I empathized with him. I think I empathized with him from the idea of like his version of love is provision, his version of love is
Yeah.
providing for the people around him. And while a lot of people in media paint that out to be very patriarchal, which it is, the breadwinner mentality is patriarchal, I also saw how he wasn't able to express that otherwise because he always felt like he had to be the hero. And I really
Yeah.
empathized with that. He also was just like very much like an anti-hero in my eyes of just like he
Mm,
kept doing the things that I'm like, I don't think stealing from someone else's house is right. Like I don't think that like
yeah.
acting the Robin Hood of doing that is right. But I could find myself justifying a lot of the behaviors that he was doing because I was like, oh my God, like you're going through a lot. Like I'm empathizing with someone that lives in one of the most expensive, like supposedly expensive neighborhoods, I think in Connecticut. And I'm like, I feel so hard for you. And
I
maybe
know. Yeah, right.
I feel like there's part of it where I'm also like, it's John Hamm. So I'm like, I love John Hamm. So I'm like, maybe I'm empathizing more than I should. But I'm also like, the character development was just so strongly done. I don't know. There was just like so much humanity to him where I'm like, maybe it's also like, I saw parts of Coop in my own father where I was like, I can only empathize with someone who just wants to take care of the people around him. And
Right.
he's really just a human because he does fuck up a lot. Like he should not be like cheating on like I guess like sleeping with his wife's
Mhm.
best friend. He shouldn't be stealing from people's houses. He shouldn't be like fucking over Elena for like the money that she needs when she's also getting engrossed. Like there's just so many factors where I'm like, oh man, like Hoop, I don't want you to do this, but I'm rooting for you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's so you touched on something that's like so difficult with TV, especially of why am I rooting for this person? But with him, I mean, it does really come from a real place of being the provider and and feeling this weight of responsibility. And that was something that was interesting in writing for Coop is like, this character was created by a father who has,
Yeah.
similar responsibilities, yet I was able to like find my own way into that and I have different responsibilities, but like I deeply understood that pressure that he felt.
I did
Um
too.
yeah, and it's I do really think with TV especially that is part of our investment is a result of world building because you understand the stakes of the environment that they're in. And so it's like, we've set up the family dynamic, we've set
Yeah.
up the community and the pressure and his even, you know, his legacy and his identity as like someone who has achieved, and then now what? How does he reconcile with this quote unquote failure?
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess, I mean, not that it's nihilistic, but like when something bad happens to you, I do think that's when you go, well, what is any of this? Like,
Oh
well,
yeah,
what is
existentialism just hits.
existentialism? It's like, what's the point of any of this? And that's kind of when he looked around at, you know, all of his neighbors and was like, well, what does it matter? What do you care if some one of your 16 watches goes missing? Do you actually care? And then it's kind of proven, like when he gets a taste of it, it's like he proves himself right, where he's like, see, it didn't.
Yeah,
So that's the
right. He's like
justification.
totally Robin Hood because he's like, I'm distributing the wealth, the extreme wealth that already exists in these places. Because to be honest, you're not going to remember it. Which I'm like, that even that one concept is genius. Like, I would never have thought, oh, what if I just steal from my extremely rich neighbors as an
Yeah.
extremely rich person? Like,
Yeah.
genius.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, it's so funny to, this is where I put my therapist hat on and like start therapizing fictional characters. But I'm
Which
like,
I understand.
oh my God. But I'm like, I wonder if like that of thinking that it doesn't matter is like a way of not having to feel the heartbreak of losing, you know? Because if it's like, oh, well, if money doesn't matter, then I don't have to feel bad about, you know, having lost my job
Oh my God.
because
Or lost my wife. Like, I feel like all of this is just a like emotional response to what feels like a failed marriage. But the thing is, the marriage was not like, in technical terms, yes, the marriage was a failure, but you see how the two of them act around each other. Like, that love was never lost to begin with. It just kind of got buried under all of the status games that were being played, you know?
mm, yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's, I mean, it's status games, but it's also all colored by the fact that you see a really big consequence
Yeah.
of what he's doing right
Yeah.
off the bat. So in that sense, I wonder if that got the audience kind of on board a little bit more of like knowing that we understand the morality of
Mhm.
what's going on. We aren't just, you know, permitting all of this
Oh, of
thievery.
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I also just think, given the class discourse that's happening right now and like class wars of just like the extreme wealthy and just like looking at them with like really negative eyes, like a piece of media coming out around this is just so crucial because it really does, it's not excusing behavior, but it's humanizing that not every single person is actually the same. Yes, there might be people that do feel like they're dehumanizing others when it comes to money, but not every single person is like that. And to even have conversations across income boundaries requires having media to discuss things, because it's almost like we like to create fictional worlds to discuss this to make it a little bit easier to talk about extremely difficult topics like money and what money brings, like ego and status and just heartbreak. Like, I just feel like there's so many themes that are touched on, and it makes it like easier for the conversation to even happen.
Exactly. And I loved when we had our first conversation and you said that money is so emotional. And it's true. It's like this thing that's always approached as like cold, hard business when
Yeah.
that's not the case. And a show like this, yeah, really is opening up that conversation of like, what is our relationship to it? How does it affect us and come between us and the people we love, or bring us closer together? um yeah, it's a very interesting, it's like with the show, like your mind goes to so many places of things that you want, like as a writer, you always kind of have ideas in a room in your back pocket that you're thinking about, that maybe there will be an opportunity to pitch this. And when we were going into season 2, I had this little like little idea that I wanted to see like a flashback of Coop as a kid, and when one of those first money beliefs was planted.
Oh,
Because
wow.
you asking me about that, I was like, I remember before season 2, I was like writing some notes on my phone, and I was like, that would be cool if we like saw something where he like had a change of opinion about like money or what he wanted in terms of wealth in the
Was that
future.
that was a scene, I think, in the funeral episode, right?
In the funeral episode,
Or maybe it was before.
I feel like there was mention of it.
Yeah.
There was mention of some childhood association, but I don't think an actual flashback.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think it was so funny because I was watching the funeral episode with my friends and they were like, oh, this was an extremely emotional episode. Like, not much plot necessarily moved, but it was actually extremely crucial, or at least that was my belief, was like, I actually felt like it was so crucial to just demonstrate that when you hit your midlife crisis, it doesn't matter what amount you have in your bank account, like what you've accomplished in your life, like every single person is on the road to death, not in like a derogatory way. It's more just like that is the final destination for all of us. We can't escape it. And I think that's the first moment that you see that Coop realizes he can't be the provider because he can't do anything about fixing that problem. And that's like when you kind of have to relinquish control almost.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and control was a big theme, right? Of
Yeah.
like for the character especially, is like what is in his control, what is he trying to control, what does he need to stop controlling?
Yeah.
Um yeah, yeah, it's a very potent moment in his life.
Yeah. And I think it was just like I remember like watching the scene where he's talking to like his dad's like kind of affair lady. I don't really know if they had an affair, some emotional affair for sure. And I honestly I felt emotional watching that because it's like almost being an adult and seeing like you almost like wish that your parent feels really happy from whatever would provide them happiness in
Yeah.
life, whether or not it was from their wife or from an affair. Like as effed up as that sounds, it's like you
Yeah.
just want the people that you love to feel happiness. And I feel like that's a very like child versus adult difference, because when you're a child you're like, I just want everything to be at peace, I want everything to be okay. But as an
Right.
adult you're like, no, I actually just want you as an individual to be happy.
Yes. Yes. And that's so like a very astute observation, because it's true that like and as kids, like we're learning the rules, right? We're learning like this is good, this is bad. Of course, that's very black and white, and we come to
Yeah.
realize that like life is in the gray. But it's true. I felt the same way, where it's like, wait, but we're happy for Ron that he cheated on his wife. But
Wait, I
other
know.
men who cheat on their wives were like, no, that's bad. We don't like you anymore. But it's true. And when you start to think of that, especially in terms of a parent, um, it's just it's yeah, it's a very weird realization to have, but ultimately, yeah, you just want them to be happy.
Yeah.
And what does happiness look like? That's that's when it becomes very individual too, because it's like, well, what does happiness look like for you and within your circumstances? And that was a nice thing that we got to write in our episode, me and my co-writer, is a conversation with Ron and Coop in the bathroom, where it's like his ghost or a figment of his imagination. And he's kind of asking Coop, well, what are you doing? Like, what are you trying to get out of this? And yeah, I do think that is really trying to focus in on like, doesn't matter what everyone else has. Like, what do you want?
Yeah, it's almost like everyone thinks that there's like one version of utopia, but that's why that will never exist, because we all have our own version of what that utopia looks like, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. Well, it's also like that's why when you said even, I mean, definitely hits on so many serious parts of the conversation with money, taboos, like heartbreak, funerals, love, all that. But then like I don't know, one of my low-key favorite characters in the show was Barney, because I think he provided
Yes.
some of the most comedic relief. Like anytime he came on the like screen and he was just like screaming Choi Boy, or like he was drunk, like was that very intentional for him to be like the comedic relief in the show?
Yes, definitely. Jonathan went in with the idea of that character wanting him to be a neurotic, funny source of comedy for sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like he is a very three-dimensional character,
Oh,
because it's like he's
yeah.
he's driving so much of the plot too, because of his management of Coop's money, and then becomes involved in the shadiness of it all. But yeah, that was definitely intentional. And I mean, Hoon is a very like multifaceted performer. Like he's
So good.
he can hit a lot of levels. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even his whole narrative, like I even really enjoyed his wife's like performance or like whatever in the show, of like her even being like a boss gal energy, just like being like, get it together. And I just, there were so many dimensions to it that I just thought were so prime. I mean, as you can tell, I'm a huge fangirl of the show. So
Yeah.
it's just like, it's so fun to just like, I think for me also, I've watched television growing up like incessantly, and I'm someone who like analyzes so much out of it. It's like you see those like Reddit threads of like Severance, for example, and you're like, oh my God, audience members are so perceptive to certain things because they get so invested. When you like can make a show feel like it's a part of your real life, you're like, that is good media.
Yes. Well, I mean, you've been incredibly perceptive about this show. I like
Aw.
would be so interested to talk to you about other shows too, and see what
I would love it. I'm such a
oh my God. But also like being in the kind of driver's seat, sometimes it's hard to get perspective because you're trying to imbue what you're writing with your own experiences, and like it's how you make sense of like whether it's resonating. But I love talking to viewers about TV, because it's like they're seeing these characters as like whole people that are just on their own, reflective of like people that we know in our lives, and like singular. And yeah, it's like you pick up on stuff that like I hadn't even thought about.
Well, I think it's also like it's kind of when you're in a relaxed seat, like with popcorn and like a Coke in your hand, like you really can just pick up on things. It's so different when you're the person that has to like think about every angle, but it's almost like insecurity, for example, there's always going to be like a hole that people see. And it's like we're from that advantage. So it's almost like getting to talk to the audience members kind of gives you a lens into, I would never have even thought about that. And if you have like millions of viewers, that's like probably a million different perspectives. I even imagine that when you talk to viewers, it's like that was not actually how we were planning for that to like be perceived, but that's a really interesting take, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's sometimes too, it's like you're unconsciously doing it. It's like deep down what you're trying to say, but like you haven't really understood yet.
Exactly.
And other people pointed out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. This was extremely fun, Cara, sorry.
Here.
But I wanted to just close on like one question with you, which is like, if you never had to prove anything to anyone with money, which I feel like is very on theme with your friends and neighbors, which is no status, no security, and no provision, what do you think you'd actually want? And do you think you already have it?
Interesting. If I didn't if I didn't live in a capitalist society.
No, that's actually the question.
No, and do I think I already have it? That's so interesting. I do feel very fortunate. Yes, I feel like a lot of my, whatever human insecurities come from that kind of like striving and trying to fulfill the contract of this is success and this is what I need to have to feel safe. But like I am very invested in the relationships in my life. I like appreciate people. I think like connection with people is, to me, like the thing of that has the most value.
Yeah.
Also, like, you know, my relationship to myself and just feeling a sense of ease and confidence and, you know, happiness. So yeah, was the question like, what would I need to feel?
No, what do you think you'd actually want if you
What
like
would I
money was the
actually
thing,
want?
or do you have it? The reason I asked if you already have it is because honestly, by the way that you're talking about your work, it seems like you're really happy with what you do and that you really enjoy what you do. But I'm always curious.
Right. No, it's yes. And it it took a while to get here, but it was a very like, I think I had my version of a midlife crisis early and it did
Yeah,
kind of set me on, yeah, on a path. It's like, I mean, quarter life crises are things that happen, but I got into meditation, and
I get it.
when I was meditating at one point, I asked myself that question too, where I was like, okay, if you weren't like trying, like if you weren't ambitiously striving or like trying to make a lot of money, whatever, what would you actually want?
Yeah.
And it was like creative freedom, like creative freedom to make things that bring me joy and bring other people joy, and like the ability to collaborate with other people to like to that effect. And I feel like I have a lot of that in my life.
I
So
think you do too, and that's
thank
amazing.
you.
I mean, they always say like on your deathbed, like what do you think about? It's not like I said, like the money in your bank account. It's like the relationships you had with people and like the ability to create cool things for the world. And you're doing that. So go off, queen.
I'm living large over here.
As you are. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing this interview with me. I
Mhm.
genuinely had I nerded out so hard if you couldn't tell because this
Love
was so
that.
fun. Yeah, I mean, everyone has to go watch season 1 and 2 of Your Friends and Neighbors. And if there's any way folks can support you, is there any way that we can support you in your work?
You. Thank you. Um, I mean, I have another show coming out. I wrote on an animated comedy called Super Team Canada, which is Will
Cool.
Arnett's a new show about superheroes, which is very fun. Um, but yeah, I mean, watch the show and you know, keep an eye out. I'm gonna be writing on other things, and keep watching comedy. That's what I want to tell people to do.
Yeah.
Keep watching comedy, keep it alive. Because yes, that's what I want to see more of out there.